Hello, welcome to Matters of DeCorum. My name is Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. This one's going to be a little personally painful for me, but it's something I've got to get off my chest. And I need to preload this with a few caveats. Uh, I'm going to be discussing some potentially controversial religious subjects, some theology and matters of modern religion and modern Christianity. And I don't want to offend anyone. I honestly don't. So, before I go any further, if you feel you might be offended by a frank discussion about Christianity and creationism and evolution and theism and atheism and subjects related, you have my permission to stop this video right now, go do absolutely anything else with your time, and I'll see you next week with something a little bit lighter. And if you're still with me, I need to discuss a few things about this book. This is my parochial school study Bible. I used this starting in third grade through sixth grade, and it carried me through my confirmation after my catechism classes. I've read every word in this Bible, some of them more than once, half of them out loud. You go around the class and you read, but I always seem to get the really long passages. I was taught a respect for this book. More than taught a respect for this book. It was drilled into me how important this book was, how necessary it was to keep it in my life, and how it described a wonderful plan for my life and how I could continue to be involved in that plan for my life through the end of this life and into the next. And that's powerful stuff to put on someone in third grade. Truth be told, I started learning this earlier. I didn't go to a parochial school when I started school in California, but I've been going to Sunday school for as long as I could remember. Certainly before kindergarten, whatever preschool program they had at the church in Cyprus that my family went to, and vacation Bible school and church services, and religion was a huge part of my life. To the point where I studied religious education. That's where I got my bachelor's in, and have a director of Christian education certificate, so I kind of know this stuff. I think I was in sixth grade when we really started to learn about what evolution was. And there were some things that people who believed in evolution believed that were obviously ridiculous. Obviously ridiculous. We even had a little class project going where half of the group was going to be a defense attorney for creationism, and the other half of the group was going to be the case for evolution. I was on that side. And we were going to, study our arguments and talk about things and maybe even videotape it and have this thing. And they canceled that after a while because I don't think they really wanted us looking into evolution that much, which was odd because if evolution had such obviously ridiculous and unsubstantiated and untenable foundations, why would they have a problem with a bunch of sixth grade kids going to the library and looking it up? I learned things about evolution. I learned what atheists were like in that school. In that school, at the church that I went to, the Bible studies, and the youth programs and youth groups. I went to another youth um, program, a Christian youth group, not connected to my church, but a little bit more progressive, a little bit more fun, a little bit more rock and roll, and better punch at the end of the meeting. A better chance to meet girls, because this was like getting on towards the end of junior high and into high school, and that was actually kind of a good social group because everyone was so friendly. And one of the things that we learned there was a molecular biologist came into that group and started telling us about, why he couldn't accept that evolution was anywhere near scientifically accurate. Why he was a creationist because of all these fallacies in evolution that just always seemed so obvious. Fast forward a little bit. I've been to a public junior high and my public high school, and I was working on my theater arts degree at the junior college in St. Louis. And lo and behold, they were going to do a play called Inherit the Wind. If you're not familiar with it, it's a theatrical treatment of the Scopes monkey trial, which a man was convicted for being the first person to attempt to teach evolution in a state where it was against the law to teach evolution in the schools. Which seemed perfectly reasonable to me at the time, but, progress. The play was interesting. It wasn't, eye-opening. You weren't going to believe one way or believe the other and go and watch the play or even be in the play and not walk out with about the same opinion you went in. It's funny, I actually had two bit parts in Inherit the Wind. I was the Bible salesman at the beginning, and I was the geologist at the end. So it was kind of funny to find myself straddling both sides. And the director of the play, I was going for a theater arts degree. The director was one of my teachers. I had a number of classes with her, not the least of which were classes on directing and theater craft. So while she was going through all of her decision-making processes for what was going to happen in the play and how things were going to be portrayed, I wasn't helping her make those decisions, but I was listening to her decision-making process. I knew what she was thinking about when she wrote those things down in the playbook. Hell, I had to be tested on some of this material later on. Well, a Christian youth organization found out that we were going to be doing the play, Inherit the Wind, and wanted to protest. Rather than protest, they did a presentation on campus, a debate of their own, talking about how the play Inherit the Wind unfavorably favored evolution over creationism and what the flaws in evolution were. And, okay. It didn't seem properly directed. It was not, no, they're putting on this play. Okay, and we need to go and talk about this play because it might or might not contravene things that we believe to be true. I'd done the Christian youth group thing, so okay, yeah, that's a Thursday night. But then something happened at that presentation of theirs, where they started talking about what the director intended. And they were wrong. Now, that's not my opinion. That's not a subjective judgment on perhaps they misgauged things. No, I knew what the director had intended. For a fact. Seen her doing it. Been in the theater when she directed people to do things a certain way. Been in the classroom while she was describing how she came to the decisions necessary to direct that play. And the people who came to protest it attributed another entire set of motivations to her. Oh, she was trying to make evolution look good. Remember that one book at the end? That was obviously put right up above the other one. So evolution came up above Christianity. And it's like the stage direction was actually for both books to be placed exactly together and placed on the shelf directly ahead of them. No. That was a mistake. She meant for the one to be ahead of the other. And I asked myself, why are the Christians lying? Because their information was incorrect. Their information was completely incorrect. It was false. Objectively, completely, demonstrably false. And they would not be bent from that perception of events. Now, when someone tells you something that is false, there's a couple of different reasons that could be happening. They could be misinformed about the information they're giving you, or they could be deliberately attempting to inform you of a falsehood. They are misinformed or they are lying. Now, there was no other source of information about what my director put into that play than my director. And she was not in any way withholding any of that information. It was out there for anyone who's taking her classes or a conversation with any of her students in these classes, like me, would have clearly demonstrated, oh, no, this is what she intended. But no, they didn't do that. They fabricated a motivation for her, which, granted, made their case look much stronger until you realized that they'd fabricated the information. It lied. In this book, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. None shall come to the Father except through me. Truth is mentioned a lot in this book, in fact. The truth shall set you free. Truth seems important. Lying's bad, too, one of the commandments, depending on how you number them, because different faiths number them differently. But, one of the last 3 or 4 is, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. I learned it as the 8th. Why were the Christians ignoring the directives of their book to make a statement that they'd fabricated simply to make their own side sound more correct and reasonable? It bothered me. It never stopped bothering me. I started reading other literature around the church. I read what the church taught me about what evolution meant, what atheists were like. I have a number of interests. I'm a role player from way back, and one of my friends in the Christian youth group came back from a concert, a speaking concert, some Christian speaker like Mike Warnke, but someone different from him. Same group of evangelical youth pastors going from place to place. She'd gone to this concert. I had missed it. And do you still play the Dungeons and Dragons? Yeah. Yes, I do. I really enjoy it. We might have a slot opening up. No, because at the concert last night, the pastor told us what you do. Okay. What do we do? That there's a demon of suicide in Dungeons and Dragons, and when you play Dungeons and Dragons, you're required to worship the demon of suicide and drink blood. The pastor told you this on stage in front of an auditorium full of Christian youth. That's what he told you about Dungeons and Dragons. I informed her I have the books. We can look through them and see where in the books it says that, because I had missed it. And she wouldn't even. Walked away. Lost a friend. I've read every edition of Dungeons and Dragons that's come out. Even the fourth. Working on the fifth right now. Still need to give you guys a review of that eventually. And nowhere in any edition of Dungeons and Dragons is there a demon of suicide, B, a requirement that you worship any goddamn thing as a player. Your character might need to worship a god if he derives power from that god. That's what clerics and paladins do. But, me, Scott, sitting down at a table rolling dice, I've got to drink blood and worship a demon. No, that's not true. And again, those books were available. This is a person who was, this youth pastor who said this, was purporting to speak from a degree of authority. He's read this, he's seen this, he's helped kids who almost committed suicide because of this, and he lied. That wasn't a misinformation, that was a fabrication. This book says not to lie, not to bear false witness. Why would the Christian lie? I was hanging out after a Bible study. There's a set of pamphlets in the back. Lutherans are big on pamphlets. Oh my, Scientology, yeah, and evolution, atheists, martial arts. Pamphlet. Read it through to discover that martial arts are a cult. They're all a cult. Because every martial art teaches that you draw on an inner strength that you have, all people have as a resource within them. And of course, the only true power derives from God, so that must make all martial arts a cult. I could buy that was misinformation. Not every martial art out there teaches key or the use of inner strength. Most of them base themselves on points of balance, and I know what a cult is. Cults lie. I'm sorry if you can see where this is going if you don't want it to go there, because I really don't either, but press on, I must. Made it through college, Director of Christian Education, Bachelor of Religious Education. Did not work out well for me as a career. Don't have the temperament for church work, because apparently it means letting everyone blame you for everything and then smiling when they hand you severance pay and tell you to take a walk. Took it like a churchman, I was informed. Not again. And I started to remember these things that were told to me, what evolution teaches, what atheists are like. And then I remember the damn D&D. I mean, this was full on satanic panic time, mid-1980s, that I'd first heard this. And Christian ministers were lying about a hobby that I loved, that had pulled me up from my depression. A depression which, in part, participation in the church had put me into. The youth group that I was a part of in my original church in St. Louis, not kind, not good, not someplace I really ever should have been. Very soul-crushing. And Dungeons and Dragons gave me a sense of familiarity and and camaraderie and accomplishment that, beat anything I'd gotten out of that. But they were trying to tear it down. What if Dungeons and Dragons and the martial arts weren't the only things the Christians were lying about? I didn't really want to believe that. But, this thing came out called the internet, and I thought I'd give it a swing. Evolution's a very interesting field to study. There's a lot of material on it online. There's no way that I can really give you even a tiniest meaningful survey of it. But it is nothing like what I was taught it was. I was taught a brutalized, amputated, quadriplegic, improperly taught version of evolution because it was easier for me to just ignore. In fact, so much so that even today, after study and my alignment towards the beliefs changing a bit, I have to fight a confirmation bias the other way. That even though I know some of these things are extremely reliable and it's a good scientific theory, and what a scientific theory is, and what scientific method is, and the methodology, and how widely accepted it is, and how well supported it is, that I still have to occasionally kick the thing in the back of my head that says, oh, nah, that's all bullshit. You can't put a whole bunch of gears in a box and shake it for a while and get a clock. That's what evolution believes, right? No. No, it isn't. But almost every Christian who has been taught by Christianity anything about evolution will tell you the same gears in a box story. I was taught that evolution is a religion. It isn't. I was taught that atheism is a religion. Atheism is a religion like not collecting stamps is a hobby. That's not what I was taught. There's a ideological battle going on right now in this country, unfortunately. I see a lot of people being very vocal about their mistrust of science. When I started to publicly voice some of my difficulties with Christianity and the church, one of my very devout Christian friends was concerned for me, and I thank him for that. Because if a devout Christian friend is concerned for you, he's going to say something to you. He's going to proselytize you. He's going to try and give you a dose of the Holy Spirit to bring you back to the side that's going to live forever. And like Penn Jillette, I can't trust a Christian who doesn't proselytize me. Because that's a core belief of Christianity. You need to convert people or they are going to die eternally in fire. You don't want that for anyone. But he sent me a long, well thought out, and loving email. And I was not terribly receptive. But I was reading it. I was considering it. And then he got to the part where he said, and if you continue along this path, very soon you're going to find yourself aligning yourself with shaky, shoddy science like evolution and climate change. And I knew how he felt when he thought he had lost me to the other side. Because as soon as I saw those words, I realized this man will never think any other way. That he believes he has a very firm grasp on what the scientific truth is, and it's the biblical truth. And anything that, in his opinion or the opinion of his faith, contravenes that must be incorrect. He was taught the same lies I was taught. Lies. I can call a certain amount of the information I was given in my youth about evolution and atheists and all manner of things. Some of that misinformation. I don't think there's a school of teaching children to lie about evolution in any church, but I think that church tradition over time, in some faiths, has just come to routinely and rotely teach these things over and over and over again, because that is how, in the minds of the people who teach them and hear them, they achieve a status close enough to truth. Do I believe in the theory of evolution? That's a misleading and poorly worded question. Do I believe that the theory of evolution most correctly explains and answers questions regarding special development, differentiation of species, and how we continue to grow and change each in our species and in the interrelationship between species? Yeah. Yeah, I believe that. Why? Because I have been given evidence to support it. Lots of evidence. If you want to dig into the scientific methodology of it, it's a long slog through a lot of material on the internet. There are a lot of videos on YouTube that explain it really well. And a lot of videos on YouTube that try and debunk it miserably with information that is not correct. That the people who are giving to you may believe fully is correct, may have gotten that truth level in their own conditioning, but are not correctly or adequately answering the call to proof and evidence that is required to refute elements of a scientific theory. Evolution stands up to those tests. It's funny. The Catholic Church has accepted that evolution is fact for years, decades. And it's mostly the Protestant religions that still cling on to that whole creationist, or even worse, young earth creationist viewpoint. If someone tries to tell you that the science is wrong, oh, we can't know how old rocks are, they don't understand the science. If someone gives you the, well, how do they know? You can simply inform them that their inability to understand the methodology does not constitute a flaw in the other person's argument. When you start to dig into the scientific method and evidence-based data that has undergone peer review, you get a very different picture of the world and the facts and the theories that we use to model this world than what I got as a youth in parochial school, junior high youth group, and even in college, studying for my BA in religious education. we don't need to be having a debate about creation versus evolution. You really don't. Because that's not what this book is about. First of all, if you find you must fabricate information about something that another person believes or another person's intentions to make your views from this book seem like better views, you have lost. This book is about truth. At no point does this book teach or condone fabrication of information or the attribution of a straw man set of beliefs to another person to further its agenda. I learned a wonderful word at Concordia University, Irvine. It is a word that describes this book and its purpose. This book is Heilsgeschichte. Yeah, leave it to a Lutheran to come up with a word like that, huh? Heilsgeschichte literally means holy history. This is the textbook of human salvation. Whether you agree to its authenticity or not the issue here at this point in time. What is the point is that this book is not about the mechanics by which finches change species. This book is not about the mechanics by which we got abiogenesis or how species adapt to external and internal changes over generations to produce more successful species. This book is about mankind's salvation. It's a good book. Do I take the whole thing literally? Well, no, I really can't. There's parts of it that you're not supposed to. Even if you're a whole Bible literalist, if you understand a few books in it, particularly Revelation, yeah, those aren't meant to be read literally. They're allegorical to begin with. Whole other set of videos there. What I'm trying to say, if your faith is threatened by a statement of science, then you need to examine your faith and you need to try and understand the science. You do not need to go to someone else of your faith and ask them how to knock down the science so your faith gets stronger. That isn't really how it works. See memes online all the time of people and creationists with their questions for science. If there is no God, how do you explain a sunset? If man is derived from ape, why are there still apes? All of which can be boiled down to the same statement, I don't understand science. Which is fine. A lot of people don't. It takes a lot of study to understand science. It might be one of those basic courses in most educational systems right now. But it's okay to say you don't understand something. Even scientists occasionally have to say they don't understand something. That's how knowledge begins, by the statement that I don't know this. If you don't say I don't know this, then you cannot then say, but I'm going to find out. I worry about my friends of very strong faith. Not that I think any of them are really in any kind of actual danger or peril, but because I dislike seeing people turn away from truth in a pursuit of a personal truth. And if you think I'm talking about you at the moment, it's unlikely that I am. I have a very small number of individuals in mind, and they're not the kind of people who would still be watching this tape after the first, warning that I threw out there. Again, this isn't meant to offend anyone. This is just a statement of how I see the world going right now. There are people in charge of how science is budgeted and handled in this country who don't believe in the science. There are people cutting mental health programs because they think psychiatry is witchcraft. There are senators who believe that the presence of snow denies the truth of global warming and climate change. All of whom might just as well be standing up and saying, we don't understand the science and don't care to. In fact, they do say that. They just shorten it down to, I'm not a scientist. Ignorance is no defense. Ignorance is not a strength. Ignorance is not a stance. But it is a great way to make people feel belittled on the internet. I've watched a number of YouTube videos lately of very devout, very determined, very strong-willed, and good-hearted Christian apologists, creationists, talking about how to argue with people who believe in evolution. Atheists, because atheists and evolution are the same thing. They're not. And they'll do the same thing to some degree. And I'll throw this out there, and if you notice it, you can make a comment or something. But when they start to present the argument that they're going to be countering, when they talk in the voice of their opposition, their voice goes up. They get a little bit nasally. They waggle their head back and forth a little bit more. Like, well, then this atheist is going to say, well, yes, but you have to prove that God exists. Quick note coming from someone who is a student of psychology and communications. If you resort to sotto voice to belittle your imaginary debate opponent, you have lost the debate before it started. It's stupidly common. It's most of them, I doubt, are even doing it consciously. It's just that they have such little opinion for the beliefs and concerns of these other people, because they're taught that from a very young age. Believe me, I know. And they cannot wait to show their superiority over these people, their derisiveness towards their silly, ridiculous ideas. And having that much of a lack of respect for anyone or anything is not a winning strategy. It really isn't. I'm not trying to convince anyone one way or another about these things. This is my personal journey that I'm still on. I've come to really appreciate evidence-based, peer-reviewed data. I like science that has gone so far as to have resulted in a theory. And intellectually, that's serving me very well right now. Your mileage may vary. All I'm really trying to say is, and this is the hard part, I was equipped with a big bag of bullshit to throw at people who were only trying to demonstrate a truth. That's not the way it should work. And if that's what you find yourself doing because of your personal belief system or the faith that you brought up in, if you examine it and go, well, wait, I was told these people believe this, but when I looked into this, that's not what they believe. You ask yourself why. Why does someone who purports to follow the teachings of this book find it necessary to equip you with lies to do it? This book tells you who's responsible for lies. And it isn't the person in this book you're supposed to follow. Now is it? I've discovered personally that it's not about trying to take the point of view that you already agree in and make it the truth. Sometimes you have to let go of that point of view. You have to step back. You have to open your mind to accept that there is a way to demonstrate that something is accurate or inaccurate, and finding that way that works for you and applying that test to things you've been taught about. Might be the only way you get to where you're trying to go. That's my journey. That's my opinion. I welcome challenges and disagreement. I can expect a bit, I'm sure. Comment below if you have a differing opinion or would like to set me straight on something. Follow me on Facebook. Subscribe to my videos. Follow along this wild thing. And if you think you can catch me, or if you've got an argument that is going to set me right, oh, let me have it. Let me have it. Not because I want to knock it down. I just want to test it out. Lighter fare next time. I just needed to get this off my chest because, well, it's been on there for a while. Maybe you can tell. In the meantime, I'm Scott Corum. This is what has mattered to me, and I will see you next time on the next Matters of Decorum.